Hello to all you fire alarm and siren fans on YouTube. It is FS Thunderbolt Fan 1000 here, coming to you with another siren talk. Today we're going to be talking about the history of Soundmaster signals, but first I want to give a quick shout out to Sheboygan Warning Systems for sponsoring this video. Sheboygan Warning Systems offers siren solutions all across Wisconsin. They refurbish old sirens if they can be. They'll install new sirens, and they're Wisconsin's only Sentry dealer. They also offer siren maintenance. If you got a siren that needs attention, please contact Sheboygan Warning Systems. I will put their information in the link below. So to get into Soundmaster, we have to understand the history of Soundmaster sirens and investigate into the life of James Morgan. It also must be understood that Federal Signal sales of the 2T22 and 3T22 were booming in the 60s, and other siren manufacturers wanted to get in on that market. ACA developed the Super Banshee to compete with it, and later Soundmaster Signal made their line of sirens to compete with it. James Morgan was a lawyer from Madison, Wisconsin. At an early age, he started his own business, Morgan Fire Equipment, selling everything fire service related, such as hoses, extinguishers, and etc. Throughout the business, he was able to pay his way through law school. With his business in the early 50s, he also sold air raid sirens. He was a southern Wisconsin Federal Signal dealer. He sold a lot of older Federal products still found in southern Wisconsin today, such as some of Racine's older Thunderbolts that I think are still up. I don't think ECS got to him yet. In the late 60s to early 70s, he was contracted to be a distributor for the newly formed Alerting Communicators of America. In 1968, at the State Civil Defense Convention in Milwaukee, ACA debuted some of their first sirens: the Alerter 125, the Screamer 105, the Cyclone, the Sentry 95, the Hurricane 130, and the Banshee 110, and also the Super Banshee 115. ACA had many ideas, such as a convertible siren with different projectors that could be attached to meet the warning needs for growing cities. ACA later threw out this idea, sadly. Mr. Morgan dealt these sirens for several years, but one caught his eye: the Super Banshee. Mr. Morgan thought that this siren was a good design but could use some improvements and would be a great siren to use for the convertible siren idea. He figured he could improve on ACA's design and sell them on his own. The siren he created would go on to be known as the Soundmaster Converta-Siren. The siren's rotors and stators were the same as the Super Banshee, even being 812 port. The rotors and stators were made from the Super Banshee's rotors and stators mold. It was thought for a while that Soundmaster used the same foundry ACA used, and this proved to be true. ACA contracted the Loughton Foundry in Milwaukee for several years to cast their sirens, and this may be the one both Soundmaster Signal and ACA used. For the record, both Soundmaster and ACA Super Banshee used the same exact molds for their rotors and stators. Once cast, the Soundmaster's rotors and stators were machined at the Soundmaster factory in Whitewater, Wisconsin. Morgan sold 3 styles of Soundmasters along with some ACA products, mainly the Alerter 125 and the Banshee, not the Super Banshee but the regular Banshee. All testing of the Soundmaster Converta sirens were done at UW-Madison. Soundmaster Converta sirens were a genius design. All sirens use the same core, which is the motor, a rotor, a stator, and another rotor and a stator. The one rotor was 12 ports, the other one was 8 ports. The cores could be ordered in either 2 signal models, which was alert and attack, or a 3 signal model siren, which would be alert, attack, and fire, and these sirens were fitted with dampers on each stator to block off air to create the high-low signal. You could see this 3 signal model in Tachita, Wisconsin. Soundmaster designed many different fiberglass projection discs and a housing that could project the sound in different ways depending on a community's needs. They made a set of discs that not only covered the top of the rotors, that projected the sound in a downward direction for smaller towns to saturate a smaller area with sound. An example of these can be found in Clinton, Wisconsin. Those Soundmaster 115s. If a community grew, they could get another set of discs that would mount to both the tops and the bottoms of the stators, which would project the sound in an outward pattern for medium-sized cities. An example of this could be found on the old Iron Ridge Soundmaster 115. For larger cities, Soundmaster offered a rotating housing that could be fitted over the entire siren core to encapsulate it and concentrate the sound out of a single horn for each rotor. This siren would be known as the Soundmaster 125. In order to rotate this fiberglass housing, they used a worm gear setup to spin the housing around the stationary siren core. An example of this siren could be found on the Gibbon, Minnesota Soundmaster 125. They also offered a single-tone siren that used just one rotor and stator but still used the same Stirling dual-shaft motor, and then they actually put a little cone on top of the one motor shaft that wasn't being used, and it looks kind of funny. You can see that siren in Brownton, Wisconsin. Soundmaster was successful in selling sirens to smaller communities, mainly in Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. In the early years, ACA did not really care so much about what Soundmaster was doing, since ACA had abandoned the Super Banshee years before, till the later years when they started losing a lot of sales to Soundmaster. Soundmaster was providing systems to cities at a fraction of the cost of what ACA was charging cities. It was then that Jim Biersock, president of Alerting Communicators of America, and Jim Morgan of Soundmaster Signal, Incorporated, engaged in what was known as the Holy Siren Wars. Jim Morgan referred to ACA in true Wisconsin fashion as beer can and underwear, and ACA referred to Soundmaster as lousy partial copies, when they were both just producing sirens that were improvements on Federal Signal's 3T22. In a 2009 interview that a siren enthusiast conducted with Jim Biersock, he had to say this about the lawsuit with Soundmaster Signal, and I quote, "We sued him for breach of contract, his dealership, stealing industrial secrets, and failure to pay for over $1 million of inventory that he had sold but not paid us for. In the court, he claimed under oath that he had invented the sirens himself when I showed pictures of our rotor pattern that had once been dropped in the foundry and had a dent in the inner core mold, and his sirens had the same identical dent in the inner surface of the rotor. He was arrested for perjury, and we won the case that put his company out of business. I believe he also lost his law license because of his conviction. He died a few years later." End quote. The story of how the suit happened has many conflicting stories, such as Soundmaster's side told by Richard Buggs, stating that ACA did not prevail in the court case and that Soundmaster kept on producing sirens until a few years after Jim Morgan's untimely death. This statement was both true and false. After the lawsuit, Jim Morgan quit Soundmaster Signal, and a Soundmaster company salesman took over the company for him. Sales of the Soundmaster lingered into 1973, but by 1975, the Morgan Fire Equipment Company closed its doors. Soundmasters were decent sirens, but were not without their problems. The Stirling motors they used had a tendency to draw in water in the cold months and cause them to freeze and burn up. Some communities with Soundmasters have even been rumored to not have tested them in colder months for this reason. Water would also get in between the motor and the rotor, causing the shaft to bend and break in them. Another problem that was noted was the fiberglass top caps were also known to fall off and fly away in high winds. For this reason, Clinton, Wisconsin stopped ordering replacement top caps for their Soundmasters. The most common issue with Soundmasters was with the Soundmaster 125 rotating housing model. The worm gear inside of them that they used to rotate them had a tendency to strip itself, causing the siren not to be able to rotate anymore. Some areas, such as Rock Creek State Park in Iowa, pointed the horns in two different directions to try and combat this issue. Over the years, many Soundmasters have been removed and replaced. The Iron Ridge 115 was replaced with a Federal Signal T22. Clinton, Wisconsin replaced one, if not all of the remaining Soundmaster 115s with 2001 130s, and Janesville, Wisconsin replaced their last Soundmaster 115 with a 2001 130 a couple years ago. Some Soundmasters that are left standing are located in Harper, Kansas, which are inactive, Tachita, Wisconsin, the 3-signal model is still active, Oakland Acres, Iowa, which is a Soundmaster 125, which is rumored to still be working, and then Gibbon, Minnesota, to name a few. It was rumored that Soundmaster made a horizontal siren, but it was untrue. parts from a few removed Wisconsin Soundmasters were sent to Henry, Tennessee, where they were made into a custom horizontal Soundmaster that appears to still be in service to this day. So if you're near Henry, Tennessee, I would highly encourage you to go and record it before it is lost to history, this siren. Unfortunately, Jim Morgan died in 1988. Before he died, he led a successful career outside of Soundmaster's signal. In the 1960s, he was appointed by then-Governor of Wisconsin, Warren P. Knowles, to be the leader of the Wisconsin State Tax Commission. He also went on to be a big advocate for fire safety and preparedness. He went on to also push fire safety regulations for the state of Wisconsin. Lastly, he went on to found the Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs Association. Outside of politics, he was a successful attorney. Mr. Morgan unfortunately died in 1988 after losing his battle with cancer. Well, this pretty much concludes this video on Soundmaster's history. Hopefully it clears the air on a lot of stuff. I did a lot of research on it and talked to a lot of people and actually found a report from one of the Soundmaster company employees themselves to help clear things up. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this video. If you want to see more like it, please subscribe, hit the bell icon so that way you can be notified of every time I post a new video. And if you want to see more videos like this, also comments giving me a topic to talk about, and then I'll do some research onto it, and then I'll make another video like this one. So, like I said, thanks for watching, you guys. I'd also like to thank Justin Olson for his information. He provided me with a lot of information on this, and then Richard Buggs, who used to be on the Siren Board, who made a lot of posts about Soundmaster's history, because he used to be an employee. So thank you to those two gentlemen, for without them, this video would have not been possible. Well, like I said, guys, thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and stay safe.